Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install a button to a garment correctly. So let's begin. Okay, so for this demonstration, here are the materials that I'm using. I'm using just a scrap piece of fabric that I have. I have a pair of small scissors, needles, thread of course, and some chalk and buttons. So here I have my thread. Usually you would use a sturdier thread, but if you don't have that type of thread, then just double the thread onto the needle. So I'm pulling out one of my sewing needles, and these are for hand stitchings. This is not sewing machine needles. And I'm gonna put the thread through the eye of the needle so that the thread can be doubled. And then at the end of the thread, I'm going to make a little knot. And it looks like this. So here I have my scrap fabric, and I'm going to use my chalk. And if you're trying to put a button back onto a garment, let's say if it fell off, you would just place the button back to where you see the marking of where that button is, if that makes sense. There's usually a little piece of thread hanging on the garment of where that button fell off, so you just place it right there. So here's the button that I'm going to be using. This is a 4-hole button, and this is the first demonstration. And this is the front and back. And so what I'm going to do is pierce a small little hole through the fabric, and you see I'm doing it sideways. I'm not doing it from the back. I'm not poking the fabric from the front. I'm doing it sideways. This is the neatest way that you can repair your buttons. So I'm cutting off the tail that I made from that knot, and this is how it's looking. So now I'm gonna poke through the 4-hole button in one of the holes. Okay, so I'm pulling it out, and I went from the back, not from the front of the button. And now what I'm gonna do is take the needle and put it diagonally from that hole that I put the needle in. So I'm not gonna put it below or the side hole. I'm gonna put it diagonally, just like this. So not on the side holes. No, I'm gonna put it diagonally. And what I'm gonna do is pierce the fabric again as I go into that hole. And I'm just gonna easily pull it. Just want to take your time because the thread could get tangled. Okay, so this is how it's looking. As you can see, the thread is diagonally put. And now what I'm going to do is pierce it again and go through the other hole. And then I'm going to go into the last hole and pull. And I just do this for about 3 times. 2 or 3 times, depending on what type of thread that you have. If you have a sturdier thread, then you can just do 2 times. So when I'm done, I wrap it around 3 times. And what it does is it elevates the button so that the button can go on the other side of the garment. Say for a jacket, it'll be able to go through that hole because the button is elevated. So once I'm done wrapping it around, I just make another knot, but I pierce that fabric again and put that needle through that loop to make a knot. So I do this 2 times. you see how the button is elevated? That's what you want. And now after that, I just cut the excess thread. And this is how the button looks once it's installed. Nice and clean. And it looks good. And look at the back, nice and clean. All you see is a dot, a little small dot. You don't see any craziness going on in the back, and that's what you want. So now on to the next type of button, which is the 2-hole button. And again, I'm just making a little marking, but in reality you would see like a little thread hanging on your jacket or your button down shirt, where you're supposed to put the button. So I'm piercing it again, and you just want to do it kind of small. You don't want a large piercing of the fabric. So I'm pulling it through. And now taking my 2-hole button, I'm gonna go through the back of the button and pull out. Then holding the button, I'm gonna go right back in and at the front of the button and pull out from the back. And then as you see, I'm piercing through that fabric and then going back into that buttonhole. So you kind of just want to balance everything with the fabric and button, and just make sure you go through that hole. This is how it's looking. You just want to wiggle it sometimes just to loosen it up, but at the same time pull it, but you get what I'm saying. So if you have any little excess threads, you're gonna cut it off at the end, so don't worry about that. And I just keep going in and out of those 2 buttonholes, and then the same thing, I just wrap it around 3 times. And again, that elevates the button, and I make a knot and cut off the excess thread, and this is how it looks. Very easy and simple, but you get it done the correct way and it looks clean and neat. So this is the last one, and I'm doing pretty good with my alignment on these buttons. So I'm doing the same exact thing, and the button that I have here is a shank button. It's called a shank, and what's different about those other 2 buttons is that there's just a hole in the back of the button, which means this type of button is already elevated, so we don't need to do the whole spinning around 3 times. So I put my needle in the hole, and what I'm gonna do is pierce the fabric as I go under, because we're just gonna go in circles with this button. So under, and then we're gonna go into the hole. You see that hole there? We're gonna go right into that hole. We're not gonna go underneath the fabric. We're gonna go just into that hole and do the same process. Go under and pierce that fabric. As you can see, pull it out, and then go right into that hole again. Just like that. So you do this a few times, again like 3 times, and after you're done, you just want to just make a knot as we were doing with the other 2 buttons. You don't have to spin around 3 times, just make a knot and it'll be secured. And it's okay if the button is a little wobbly. That's how this button is, and you don't want it to be so tight but secured, because you want these buttons to be able to go into a hole. And then you just cut off the excess. And this is how it looks. And this is how all 3 of the buttons look on the back side. And if you follow these directions on what I showed you, you'll get the same exact result. And this is what you want. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Later.